That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. We're going to skip all the introduction today and all the announcements and just jump straight in because we are very excited to be joined by James Casbolt. This is an interview we've been wanting to do for quite some time now. It's been actually years, and I don't actually know the last time James has done an official interview, so we're very grateful for this opportunity. And for those that aren't aware who he is, I'm going to briefly read through part of his bio, and then we'll turn it over to him and let him explain to you guys who he is and what he's been up to lately. James Casbolt is a former MI6 agent who worked in the Black Ops drug trafficking operations in London between 1995 and 99. He comes from a line of intelligence people. His grandfather was naval intelligence. His father was MI6, who was also involved in Black Ops, and his uncle was an MI5 officer in logistics from Cornwall, England. James wishes to make amends for his part in these operations to blow the whistle on the crimes against humanity that the intelligence agencies are involved in. MI6 and the CIA have cornered the global drug trade, which is worth more than $500 billion a year, which is more than the global oil trade, and are now bringing the majority of illegal street drugs to America and Britain. Now, I know that's an older bio, so a lot of things have changed since then, but there's more to it, but we'll stop there. You wrote a book years ago called Agent Buried Alive, and it's hard to find anywhere online. I found an audio version of it in a robot voice on YouTube and an actual transcribed version of it on bibliotecapleiades.net, which is a very, I'm grateful for that website.
Amazing encyclopedia website.
So, welcome to the show, James. I guess, first of all, how are you doing and how are things? What have you been up to?
Yeah, still alive. I
Yeah.
think this is the first ever podcast I've ever done. So, yeah.
Wow. We're
Yeah.
grateful. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. No. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I mean, I know you've done interviews in the past years ago, but this is, I guess, a podcast style. This is
A little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit different. So,
Yeah.
I guess, you've been away for a while and then you're back ready to talk and share some information. So what have you been up to?
Well, I've just come off license, so I can talk a bit more freely now. I'm in Cornwall. I'm in Penzance in Cornwall, and just done. We're up to about part 8 with the Bob Osborne videos on Bob Osborne's YouTube channel. So, yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
So let's talk about what you can discuss now. I know, maybe you can explain just for the audience who doesn't know, a little bit of your background, Project Mannequin, and what that involved and your family's involvement, and we can go from there.
Well, I think it's all on the public record, the Project Mannequin, Project Ibis. I grew up near the AL499 base, went to school near the base, and was in the program from a young child, really. And then officially in the US military, I officially left the US military on December 21st, 2012, which was the end of the Mayan calendar.
Interesting.
And I was stationed on the Mexican border at the time.
So, okay, so then,
synchronistic.
can you just go into, I know you said it's on the public record as far as Project Mannequin, but just for those who might not know, can you give us a brief rundown of what that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a super soldier program, but the super soldier program part of it is definitely ended.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's almost moving into the political and entertainment realms now.
Can you expand on that a little bit? What do you mean by that?
Well, the super soldier aspect of it is ended. I'm like 48 now.
Right.
So, there's been definitely a step into politics with getting involved with local government down here in Cornwall with a couple of parties. One party in particular, MK, Mebion Kerno, and it was an aborted run on government. That's how it's been described.
So that you're saying that's what you're involved in now is you're in getting involved in the politics.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I see.
yeah.
So as far as okay, so it was I understand it was like a mind control and genetic manipulation program, and a bunch of boys were born into this Project Mannequin and used as like assassins and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And so none of that's happening. Do you think that's still happening, or has it just ended for
Well,
you?
it was interesting because the project kept changing names. Back when I wrote the book Agent Buried Alive, I was told by NSA people it one of the side project names was going to be called Corona,
Mm.
and that didn't mean anything to me at the time. But obviously, it's to do with you know what that's just happened, and
Right.
it's still changing names. The program names are changing, and yeah, it's going off in these new directions.
So you think so basically the corona is also a mind control genetic manipulation program through the jabs and stuff?
Well, I don't know really. I was just told that one of the it's in the book, in the Project Agent Buried Alive book, and one of the sub projects is Corona. But that was disclosed back in when the book came out before 2010. So one of the project names is Corona.
Interesting.
So we're past that now, and we're into deep new territory. I mean, it's with the disclosure movement, which is almost taking a kind of aquatic turn.
Can you explain that? What do you mean aquatic turn?
So with the disclosure, one of the gatekeepers of the legacy UAP program was named as Dick Cheney
No. Yeah.
quite recently, and then all of a sudden the disclosure movement kind of just ground to a halt, and it almost stalled and died. But then something happened. That's what I mean with aquatic. Are you familiar with NOAA? Tim Gallaudet is the head of the NOAA Oceanic administration.
I'm not. Are you?
I know what NOAA, no, but you can maybe explain it to us.
Well, Tim
Yeah.
Gallaudet is obviously he's quite a high profile figure. The Navy admiral, and he's quite a high profile figure in the disclosure movement. And he was head of NOAA, the Oceanic administration. So NOAA have just come out and made a statement about what happened to my cousin, who is a pro surfer. His name's Tom Lowe. They just made a statement. NOAA came out, said the rising tide of risk. So my cousin, he's a pro surfer. His name's Tom Lowe. He's just had a near-death experience in Tahiti, and it's been publicized all over the world. It's being publicized in America at the moment.
Oh, wow.
And it's his second one in 14 months.
Oh, wow.
At Chopu, the famous surf spot there. And it's actually a portal. The first near-death experience he had 14 months ago, he died. And he went on a podcast in Hawaii, and he said that when he died, he went to the moon and went down a tunnel, and there was a metal or silver tree there. And this is exactly what I described in Basis 24 on Saturn. There's metal trees on Saturn.
Really?
And a few days ago, he's just had another wipeout at the same spot in Tahiti. He was held under for 3 minutes. He was found dead in the lagoon, floating face down. He was purple, and he'd been held under for 3 minutes by a 3-wave set and bounced off the reef again. He had all lacerations all over him. They had to get resuscitated. They had to go in on jet skis, rescue his lifeless body, and resuscitate him, and he coughed up all this yellow foam, and like I say, it's publicized all across the world because he's a very high profile surfer. And NOAA has just come out and made a statement about what happened to him, called the rising tide of risk. So it's kind of what my point is, that the disclosure movement is kind of, it was stalling and died when the gatekeeper was named, but it's just kind of chugged back to life again. Now this has happened.
So, and you said that's a portal area underwater?
Yeah, I always struggle to pronounce it. Chopu. It's nicknamed Chops in Tahiti,
Okay.
and this was the second near-death experience he's had in 14 months at that location.
Did the portal have something to do with why he had those near-death experiences?
Well, like I say, he went down. He said he was interviewed on a podcast in Hawaii to talk about what he saw when he died. And he said he went to the moon and went down a tunnel where there was a metal tree, a metal or crystal tree.
Right.
So yeah, there's a portal there, and that's what I described on Saturn in Basis 24. This was over 10 years ago.
So you think he actually like went through that portal, or his
Yeah,
spirit did to that place? Okay. Interesting.
I would say that not even a spirit. I'd say physically
Physically,
went
he
through
actually.
that, because he was disappeared for 3 minutes this time. He was gone.
Oh,
They couldn't find him.
and then he came back through. Okay.
And then he came up again. He was floating face down. He was purple. He
Mhm.
was dead. He was dead. And they had to
Right.
revive him back to life on the jet skis.
Right. Right.
So,
Interesting.
one of your recent videos since you came back, you talked about, you kind of mentioned, I think Elon Musk was terraforming underwater to make the habitat more suitable for the native Martians.
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Elaborate on that?
It's almost like Anunnaki. I read somewhere that Anu, the leader of the Anunnaki, is very angry, and he's polluting the oceans, so people can't go in the oceans. And basically, Elon Musk dumped tons of this chemicals into the sea in St. Ives, Cornwall. It's the first time it's ever been done in the world to change the chemical consistency of the ocean.
And that's to make it more suitable for, you believe, like native Martians or aliens that are already here?
Yeah, I would say Anunnaki is connected to it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But yeah, the god Anu, the Sumerian, I read somewhere that he's involved, and it's to do with polluting the oceans. But whether it's polluting it for humans and good for them needs a bit more looking into.
So okay, let's talk about the Anunnaki connection and the bloodlines and what you think their role in all this is today.
Well, they're very active.
So have they, like, did they, like, there's this narrative out there that they left and they're going to come back, but I've heard you say in an older interview that they've never left. They've always been here.
Yeah, I would stick by that statement, that they never left.
And can you explain, like, okay, where they've been the whole time?
Kind of hidden in plain sight.
In what way? Like just living as humans?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So you could see one and not even know. You just think it's
I think that, well, they look very human.
okay.
It's got, maybe their hair's a bit unusual or something like that.
Right. So what are your feeling on, okay, so what is your family bloodline? And like, so obviously you were chosen for Project Mannequin because of your family bloodline and everybody else. So what is that bloodline and who do you think you're related to?
That's a good question. I would say, because they were looking for blood prime, people that Sumerian, that goes back to Sumeria or Sumer. They were looking for that Anunnaki DNA. But I don't know, is part of the project wanting the Anunnaki right out there,
So but you think that you have that bloodline then and that's why they were after you?
Well, this is just what I've read on file. So,
Okay.
but it seems that way. It seems how how it's working out.
So part of their whole plan is to make it suitable, terraform the planet so the Anunnaki can hide in plain sight in some capacity, or they're already hiding in plain sight?
Yeah, but maybe come to the fore. Like I say, get all these new project names that are starting and all these.
Mhm.
So it's more sort of in people's faces.
Right. Right. So, okay, so you've been off out of the scene for quite some time, and do you wanna explain to anybody, like, what happened and why you couldn't, talk for there was, like, a basically a
Many years.
yeah, many years you weren't able to talk, and now you have NDAs that have been, expired now, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was in prison for half a decade, over half a decade, and then the other 5 years I was on license, so it was very difficult to speak. But that's only just finished now,
Right.
Yeah.
and now I was getting moved around the country to different prisons constantly.
And you think that was all to bury your testimony and to stop you from talking ultimately?
I mean, that's such a involved subject. I, I just don't want to come out and put something like that on the record straight away.
Right.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, we don't have to go there. I'm just curious, and so
I'm happy to talk about certain things to do with prison and what happened and that, but that's quite a major conclusion to just come out with on my first interview.
sure.
Right, right.
Yeah, and it's more of a speculation on my end than a conclusion,
Well, I would say
Yeah,
a lot of
if that
people
i-
speculate that, yeah.
if there's a kind of good utilitarian reason for me to come out with that, I will, but I think it's a little bit early days.
Yeah, absolutely.
right. Okay, so what are some things that you feel like you can freely talk about now that you weren't able to talk about while you were under NDAs?
Um, that's a good question, really. I can maybe talk about what happened in prison a little bit, where I was, what I've been doing since I came out, things like that.
Well, did anything of interest happen while you were in prison that dealt with the programs?
I mean, the place where I spent most of the time was in the middle of a big military compound, Salisbury Plain. That's mainly where the British military's stationed. There's heavy artillery guns going off all the time.
So were you like what happened while you were in prison? Was it just a typical sentence or did anything out of the ordinary happen?
Yeah. I mean, I was put on an island to when I was first sentenced, I was put on an island, kind of maximum security prison for terrorists. It was
Wow.
a place called Swellside, and people were getting stabbed left, right, and center.
That seems a little unusual that you would be put there to me. I mean, that
It
alone.
was like an A cat prison,
Yeah.
A category prison with for
Wow.
A category prisoners.
Look,
Yeah, that's intense.
So it was a lot of Islamic guys who were sentenced there.
Hmm.
and so how long were you on that island?
I was there for about a year. But they opened up an open university wing, which is like the a university where you can do degrees when you're in prison. Opened up a specific wing for the open university. It's
Hmm.
called Open Academy. So I signed up and I went there to try and better myself, and I start my degree in political science.
Was your sentence only 10 years or did you get out early?
Well, you do half your sentence. I was sentenced to 12 years, with it was actually with an extended license. So technically, well, officially, I was sentenced to 16 years, which was basically a life sentence. And then it was reduced on appeal. And you
Right.
serve half your sentence in this country. If you're given 10 years, you'll serve 5 years, and then you'll do the other 5 years on license.
Oh,
Okay, I see. I see. So, going back to, I guess, some of the more galactic components of your testimony in the past, you're talking about, this is very much a mix of like geopolitics, right? Entangled with spiritual evolution and the whole cosmic aspect of what's happening. Like, where do you think we're at a planetary level right now as far as moving forward?
I think it's to do with harmonics, a lot of it, and to do with connecting to the ocean. That's where it seems to be at the moment, to do with sound connecting to the ocean,
Interesting.
which and yeah, is connecting with satellites, and there's definitely a musical component of it coming out as well, which is directly connected to that.
So the frequency in like in what capacity, I guess, is how is that playing into disclosure?
Well, like I say, it's just taken a very aquatic turn, an oceanic turn, disclosure, because it did kind of grind to a halt. Nothing was happening, and then the gatekeeper was named, and then Noah came out and made this statement about my cousin.
Well, now, I mean, it seems like in the last 8 years, especially in the last 5 years, there's been all this attention on the mainstream level that I've never seen before, as far as ETs, UFOs, galactic stuff, like all this stuff is coming out. And obviously there's a lot of and misinformation, right? And gatekeepers. And you got Lou Elizondo out there, obviously a deep state shill, given this like fear-based narrative of like, oh, they're a threat, and we don't know what they are, which is BS. Obviously, they know what they are. So they're trying, there's also this big push to steer the narrative to what they want you to think and believe and cap it there, right? And then don't look over here at any of this other stuff. Don't have your own experiences, just listen to what we say. So there's all that happening. But at the same time, it's almost like they know they have to say something now. So they're trying to still steer the narrative. But it's like even that is waking up more and more people to, hey, there's the ETs are real, these UFOs aren't just nothing that we've been told from forever. They're actually something going on.
Right.
They're here, we're interacting to some capacity with them. And like I've never seen so many people that I can actually like talk to about this stuff on some level. Whereas before I just get shut like, oh, whatever, that stuff's nonsense. What are you talking about? Like 10 plus years ago. Now it's like completely different. So
Right.
there is disclosure, to me, it's almost like there's an awakening going on in a certain way. And disclosure is just a byproduct of that natural awakening, like that is happening on the planet, and it's actually playing. It's playing out in different ways in different parts of the planet and different levels to it and all that stuff. But um, it just seems like we're headed there no matter what, and it's just things are going to have to play out however they have to play out. But that's what everyone wants to know is like, how are things going to play out from here on out? What's disclosure going to look like? Well, we're a part of disclosure, right? So we can't
Well,
take ourselves out of it.
I think so much of disclosure can be socially engineered,
Yeah, we're
but
trying to.
you can't. So nobody, the CIA, it doesn't matter how sophisticated they are, you can't socially engineer two near-death experiences captured on film in the ocean within 14 months.
Right.
You can't, and you can't. You might be able to control the tides or something, but you can't socially engineer that happening. And then the guy going through portals there and actually filmed dead on
Right.
camera.
And people just having their own experiences, right?
Right.
Like somebody having a near death experience or having contact themselves with an ET or whatever it may be. Like I feel like that's happening more and more and more that I've never seen before. And like no matter what they try to do, no matter how hard they push to try to control things, it doesn't matter. Like this is happening, and they're kind of scrambling right now because they know that and they're desperate. As far as like the cabal, which I know it's a catch-all term, but the group's trying to control things.
Right.
It's like I see them scrambling right now because they know it's now or never for them to lock things down, right? And if they don't do it now, they're done. But I think they're done no matter what, personally. But the awakening is happening regardless, and these things are increasing. So
Right.
it's exciting times.
On your back in your missions, whenever you were working for MI6 and stuff, and you claim to have been in underground bases and things of that nature and encounter extraterrestrials. Can you explain like some of the stuff that you remember seeing while you were underground and what those bases were like?
Well, I was kind of put on underground bases in a way on islands. Certain parts of the prison were underground. And there, it could be argued that they were bringing ETs into the prison and putting them in cells with people. They definitely weren't human, some of the creatures they were putting in the cells with us. Yeah, there was like a bird man, and then there was like this clown sort of, you would, if you're going to use a medieval term, you would call him a demon, like a clown, sort of very much like it.
Mm.
And he had rotten flesh on his arms that he used to eat his own flesh after dinner.
Wow.
Wow.
And you saw that for and
I shared a cell with him for months.
wow. And why would you end up in a cell with somebody like that? I mean,
Well, they put somebody else in with him first, but the guy started to go like slightly insane and started to throw up.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
And then so this Birdman, what did he look like exactly?
he was like little. He sort of had like a sort of beak, like a beak for a face, with like a hunchback, and he sat like perched like a bird.
And do you know what they were in prison for?
They called the clown guy Bush Monster. That was his nickname.
And then with the Birdman, anything?
We weren't sure what he was in for because he didn't speak.
And then were there any other creatures or just that?
And there was like a giant guy they put in, almost 8 feet tall, but he said that he had giganticism, a genetic disorder. But the other two were definitely not, far, far from human.
Right.
Really? So that would argue the case that they're ETs, for lack of a better term, that are being imprisoned here on islands on Earth.
It
Unless,
seems that way, yeah.
what are the chances though that might have been some sort of a genetic experiment, the result of a genetic experiment done by
Yeah,
our own government?
that well, that's interesting because Bush Monster had come from an underground prison in Hull up north. And that's a famous prison where Charles Bronson was incarcerated. And they put them underground in airlock chambers. So I think if there's a nuclear explosion or something, it won't get into the underground section.
Right.
Mm.
So he was held underground in airlock chambers, airlock cells. And it was difficult to get any sense about where he'd come from before that. He'd just been underground in these airlock chambers for years, and then he turned up at the prison I was in. So it's
Okay.
difficult to get a sense of where he'd come from before that.
Right. Do you have any memory of your time before you went to prison as far as working for the programs and stuff like what you wrote about in your book?
Yeah, I do. But it depends, so much happened over the years. It depends what country or
Right.
what year.
Like, do you remember any specific things? Like, I remember an old interview you talked about how the dog men played a bigger role in the intelligence agencies, and they were, uh, also trained to become assassins as well. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Dogmen.
Yeah, dog men. Yeah,
Yeah, that. There's definitely memories of that. Um, but that's almost like prison as well, like you're in with sort of subhuman creatures.
right. Can you explain like what your take on the intelligence agencies is? It's not you've said before like it's not like James Bond. It's not glamorous
Yeah.
like people think. Can you like give us a rundown on what it's actually like?
Well, I don't know. They might recruit from somebody who's comes from a really poor background to somebody who's grown up with loads of violence, like I just spoke about on Bob Osborne's interview, or the
Some
street fighting and things. I grew up in Reading, just near the AL-499 base, and I was severely injured a lot. So I suppose you're fractured psychologically, so maybe you're easy to control
Right.
until you kind of recover from that. I would say I'm far from recovered.
Right, but as far as the agencies, like, themselves go, it's not like it's like they're all in bed together, they're not these separate factions, there might even be infighting and within these rival factions within the agencies, is that, like, the way I see it, it's not necessarily black
Not
and
like a
white.
monolith thing. There's
Right,
groups
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. And
different agendas.
I think because disclosure has the potential to terrify hundreds of millions of people, because terrifying things are constantly happening. So when something terrifying happens, that the intelligence apparatus kind of shatters into panic factions. That any time you introduce intense fear into a group of people, it creates conflict.
right, which is, like, their MO, their go-to for the public, for us, right? They're
Yeah,
just
maybe they're just projecting their own fears and traumas,
right.
Right.
but that's speculative.
What do you think about like right now? There seems to be like all these like riots and protests and things, and a lot of people online are claiming that most of these people might be sleeper cells or sleeper agents that are being activated. What do you know about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and kind of agent provocateurs. I mean, it could be argued, how capable are the public of organizing themselves without government input anyway?
Right, there would need to be somebody pulling the strings there.
Just
Yeah,
pallets of bricks being left there by no one knows who. They just show up and all that kind
yeah.
of stuff. Yeah.
'Cause
And
people are quite disorganized. They're not highly organized. That takes like government's kind of political science, kind of social engineering.
right.
Right, but how many of these people do you think are actual agents that are just being basically flipped on, for lack of a better term, activated?
Probably the leadership of the groups, I would say.
Right.
Maybe trained for that role for years.
Interesting. And I mean, I think that plays a big role right now. I think a lot of sleeper cells are being activated all over the place and to carry out these missions that they've been training for, apparently. So,
The two main assassination attempts on Trump, when you look at the guy who supposedly did it, they always have ties to like Fort Bragg and the deep state. And
Mm,
like the one guy was in a BlackRock commercial, and they're always like heavily medicated on the same drugs. And like, it's like you see the same playbook over and over and over again, and it's like they're switched on to do this mission,
right,
right? Like their altar or whatever is like turned on, like, oh, now you're gonna do the. But luckily, obviously, it failed. They like kept trying, but
right,
clearly, it seems like there's some kind of something else going on here. Obviously,
right.
well, I would say North Carolina, Fort Bragg, that's
Mhm.
definitely a major programming center.
Seems like it. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
What
Okay, sure.
What do you know about that? Like,
So it's the psychological operations, major psyops unit is trained there for years. Yeah.
and have you, in one of your old interviews, you mentioned coming to Missouri, Fort Leonard Wood, for special
Yeah.
forces training. Do you?
Yeah.
So what actually goes on there? Because Fort Leonard Wood's been coming up quite often for a number of people.
Yeah, Fort Lost in the Woods, they call it. It's like
yeah,
there's a big Mormon programming center there. The March into Missouri. It's a CIA programming theme. March into Missouri. It's a Mormon theme. I first read about it in the Kathy O'Brien book, Transformation of America.
it's a good book.
And March into Missouri. It's it's a Mormon belief system. Believes that in the last days, Jesus Christ will turn up in Missouri
That's
and
right.
meet up with the leadership of the Mormon Church.
Yeah, don't the Mormons believe that Missouri is where the Garden of Eden was or
Yeah,
something like that? Yeah,
this is part of the March into Missouri programming theme. Like I say, I first read about it in Transformation of America.
yeah. So
Very much a CIA programming theme.
Well,
Real quick, Fort Leonard Wood, my dad was in the Vietnam War, he was in the Army back then. Fort Leonard Wood is where he trained at. actually. That's
and my grandfather
And your
trained there as well.
grandfather. So
But I remember you saying you trained there for special forces training. Do you remember what you did there?
Yeah, there's a video. We've got a video of us training there. It's like over an hour long, a DVD. So I don't know whether we're gonna release that at some point. I loved it there.
You did?
oh yeah.
Yeah, in the woods, and it was crazy. It was really intense, but yeah, I loved it there.
What kind of training was it specifically?
Like, we were training with rocket launchers one afternoon on our
Really?
shoulders, blowing up tanks. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds fun.
Right.
And, yeah, it's crazy there. But going back to the programming themes, I was made a Mormon there. There's a picture of me getting baptized with a bald head with the Mormon pajamas,
Oh yeah.
in like this little pool with a load of other Mormons. So, but yeah, I mean, it
So
was pretty intense.
was it part of the super soldier training?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the top guys, they were like superhumanly fit. They were Mormons, maybe the two or three fittest soldiers in the company. It's about 300 people, but the training was so hard, about 100 people quit. 'Cause you can quit whenever you want. They would sort of try and encourage you to quit in some ways.
Really?
Interesting.
Really? But you didn't quit.
No, I didn't really even think about quitting. I was just enjoying it, having fun. It was really good fun.
What year was that? Do you
Yeah, that was July. We graduated in July 2012. And that's where it's because we got the DVD of us training there. That's what
really?
it says, graduated July 2012.
So that was right before your time ended in the military.
Yeah, because like I say, it finished on December 21st,
Right.
2012.
Right.
End of the Mayan calendar.
So and then you claim you were brought into these programs at age 5 at a very young age.
Yeah.
And like what did some of that training look like at a young age? Do you retain any of those memories?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it was in the underground bases. So, and it was just, like halls and things, climbing frames and things like that with other young soldiers. And then when I got injured when I was 12 or 13, I was in the Royal Berkshire Hospital, in the Battle Hospital, near the base, near the Peasmore base. And I was getting on metal put in my body to rebuild my body. I've still got some of the metal that they gave me after the operations, after they took it out. They took some of it out.
And so was it like an advanced type of metal technology, like, or is it something that's commonly used?
The stuff they gave me was commonly used, but I had a scan in 2000 and just before I went to prison, 2013, and the scan picked up a metal plate on the back of my neck, but they were only operating on my arm with the metal. They put more in than they said. Basically, that's the point of what I'm saying.
Hmm.
And is that plate still in the back of your neck then?
Yeah, they said to me, when you were in the army, did you have any shrapnel explosions or any metal embedded in your neck? I said no. So yeah, and they said, "What's a kind of metal plate on the back of your neck?"
I wonder do you have any idea what that's for?
Yeah, on my files it says there's something called a Tetra series implant. So it's almost like a pyramid or diamond shaped thing.
And what does it do?
Does a lot of things, communication and things like that, but it does a lot more than that. I was told that I won't fully understand my body for at least 10 years, and that was back in 2013.
Well,
Oh.
we're
So I'm only just starting to understand my body in 2023, and it's only just starting to come to the surface.
Just things,
Yeah.
the ways they've augmented you over time, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
My body's completely changed after prison.
In what way?
Like, I used to stand with my right foot, with my left leg forward. Now I stand with my right leg forward. It's like my whole system of movement is reversed.
Interesting.
And what do you think? Why do you think that happened?
I don't know. I think my voice has been augmented to deliver speeches in the future, or be, to be like a singer or a rapper. Basically, use my voice to connect to people.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
It's almost like there's 2, 3 voices in me sometimes. Like I've got like reverb on my voice naturally
Oh,
sometimes.
interesting.
What do you so during your training and them I guess augmenting your body and stuff, and besides the thing that happened at 12 when you had the metal implanted, do you remember anything in particular being trained for like off-world stuff or even going through jump rooms and stuff like that?
Yeah, there was definitely. I think there was Sandia Labs involvement in New Mexico with some of the jump rooms there.
And can you tell us a little more about that?
Um, just so bizarre. The memories of it's like OP off planet stuff. It's just maybe even moons of Saturn.
So, but do you have memory like what the jump rooms looked like and like how that took place?
Yeah, it was like a seat in a room, and the it's almost like the 4 walls are screens, and then imagery on the screens appears of where you're going, and then it becomes more and more solid until you're actually physically in the place.
So you just go into a room, sit in a chair, and then it suddenly changes until you're
Yeah,
actually there.
yeah, yeah. So it starts off like what's the word I'm looking for? Like almost a bit CGI
Right.
special effect at the beginning.
And then it slowly manifests into something tangible, and then you can
Yeah,
get up from the chair and you're in a whole new environment.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're not like going through a portal. I think yeah.
Is that the only type you remember? Because I've heard it described other ways too, like maybe even an elevator and, you know.
I think that those were the jump rooms at Sandia. Yeah.
Okay. As far as you, like, going off planet, you those memories are vague to you?
Yeah. Yeah. They're definitely vague. Yeah.
Do
Because
you have
obviously, when I was in the military, I know the names of the people. There's pictures of us together. But the things you're talking about is very vague. It's vague.
Right. Yeah. Have you ever gone physically off planet, like in a ship?
It's a good question.
Because in fact, I heard you say in an old interview one time that you did. I don't know if you remember that, but you said in one of the cases you actually got in a rocket, I think maybe in South America, and then they took you up into upper orbit or out of orbit, and then you basically boarded a craft from there, and uh, and then went to
But I think this is what I think the implants on the back of their neck is getting switched on and off. So I think it affects the memories.
Makes sense.
But then we've got video footage of us, of me and other people, with alien ships, with aliens at crash retrieval sites. And that, there's video footage. I knew I was in that place, Goodwood, in the UK. I knew I was there because I was staying there. But the memories of that night are very vague. So I think that's sweet.
Yeah.
This implant in the back and neck is coming online much more, though, as we head to 2030.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would imagine there's a lot of things they don't want you to remember from what you've been through. Makes sense.
Well, that's why I wondered if they maybe did anything to you in prison to block those memories, like to stop you from remembering.
Uh, Probably, yeah. Probably. I know I'm not being very specific, but
I mean, it's okay. You're being honest about it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's all we can ask. Yeah. Um, it's really interesting because it's a great example. I mean, this is what it looks like when somebody has gone through this
Right.
system, through these programs, and has implants that are affecting their memory. and we get to see what that looks like now, and it's interesting, what you're able to recall and what you're not able to recall because a lot of it is documented in older interviews you've done and stuff, and in your book. So
Mm.
it's there somewhere, but the fact that you're having trouble tapping into some of the specifics now would tell me that either they mess with your mind or the implant is affecting the memories.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wrote part Agent Buried Alive Part 2 in prison, so that's slated for summer release
Oh, nice.
with through Bob Osborne's publishing company. But
Oh, wow.
we've got a lot planned with Bob, so
What exactly do you talk about in that book? What does that cover?
well, talk about what happened in Texas. It's definitely becoming a bit more clear what had happened as regards Max
Oh,
and the
yeah.
shooting that took place with the blue Mini Cooper with a bullet hole in the window. But again, there's video footage and pictures of that. So, but that's talked about in detail in the book. That's never really been discussed before.
Right, as far as the Max Spears death is what you're talking about?
Yeah, and no, I mean, but Max and I together in Texas, and then there was a shooting, blue Mini Cooper. I ended up in the underground bases on the
Mm,
underground train system there in Texas.
and where did that take you?
New Mexico. After the shooting, the ambulance came to the Marriott Hotel, and there's video footage of the ambulance coming. But then we went to Bexar County Courthouse in San Antonio, and there's an underground port there to the tube shuttle. And there on the shuttle to New Mexico, but there was like a big briefing on the shuttle, on the underground tube shuttle. The people who were in the ambulance came onto the underground train. Basically, the ambulance drove through the back of the courthouse, and the whole ambulance went down a lift. Nobody got out. Then the whole ambulance drove onto the underground train. So the ambulance was on the underground train. Nobody got off. Nobody got out the ambulance and got onto the train. The whole ambulance was on the train.
Wow. So, and what did this briefing entail?
It's about like 20 pages long in the book,
Okay.
just talking about laying out the plan.
The plan for what exactly, though?
What's going to happen now?
With you or the world?
Both.
Both. Can you
Are you able to say any of that or
Well, it's like I'm like shot to pieces physically and psychologically. But if I can get into my 50s, okay, I'll probably recover.
Mm,
I
I'm
see.
48. I'm 48 now.
few more years? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So what were you actually doing in New Mexico? What was the purpose of taking you there?
Trying to put me back together again.
So
Maybe.
you were actually injured pretty badly then?
Yeah. And there was cryo stuff and
Cryo stuff as far
yeah.
as can you explain?
Well, healing bullet wounds.
Right.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
like being put in chambers.
Yeah.
So you were basically taken to a medical bay in New Mexico because they had technology to put you back
Yeah.
together.
And then gone on to there and then gone to California after that, San Francisco.
And what happened there?
A lot was happening. I was like back and forth in Sausalito.
And what's that? Sausalito?
Oh, that's a little town, isn't it? Just on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Okay.
I've heard of it.
Sausalito, you got San Francisco on one end, Sausalito on the other end.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
And then as I was there, I was going back from like a little hotel, travel lodge, back to the apartment, back and forth. Yeah.
And do you remember why you were doing that?
I think Max and Sarah, yeah, Max turned up as well. This was after us being together in Texas.
Okay.
And Max had showed up in Sausalito.
So do you remember anyone else from the program outside of Max? Does anyone else ring a bell that you know of? I mean,
Uh,
you don't have to say their names. I'm just curious if you actually remember other people from the programs.
yeah, I mean, I do. It's not really about trying to add numbers about who I know. It's more about cutting numbers down and trying to work out whoever remaining what's happened. Make
Right,
sure there's no stolen fame. Put it that way.
right. I understand that. So, what else do you write about in your upcoming book aside from the Texas thing?
It's mainly the book is mainly what happened with the shooting, then going on to the train to New Mexico. And also the thing with the Mayan calendar, December 21st, and some of the things that were happening in Latin America to do with, I suppose you call it super soldier, augmentation, Anunnaki stuff. But that's to do with like giants, really big people. But that's also connected to Cornwall, the giants, because it's all happening here now. This is the program has been like sucked into Zena, St. Ives, Penzance, because Aleister Crowley was here in World War One, doing rituals to bring about the end of the world.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
He was where exactly? In near Cornwall?
in Cornwall, Zena.
Okay.
So where this is where it's all being sucked into Zena, St. Ives, Penzance, and Cornwall.
And I'm sure he's not the only one that's been doing rituals to bring about the end of the world, because it seems like almost everything they do on a mass scale, like even these protests I was just telling Tyler about, it seems like a massive ritual. COVID seemed like a massive ritual to me.
Right.
So many things that happen seem like this mass ritual, like black magic that they're trying to do to steer humanity in a certain direction and make certain things happen, right? Do you know more about that? Like, or do you want, I mean, I know you know about that, but is there anything you want to expand on?
Well, Aleister Crowley was bringing Draco reptilians through into Zena. This was
Right.
in like World War One, talking about ancient Sumerian rituals to bring about the end of the world.
And why do you think he wants to bring about the end of the world? What's the agenda? I mean, other than ending the world, what's the agenda there? Is that I'm sure that's a Draco or a negative ET agenda.
Well, it's like what's happening with the sea here. It's unprecedented. That's never happened before, to change the whole chemical structure of the ocean.
So, do you think Aleister Crowley was he kind of like a pawn being used by the Draco or these negative ETs to do what he was doing? Like he was just being used or working with them in some capacity, at least?
It could be the Anunnakis above them.
Or the Anunnaki? Okay.
It could be the Anunnakis above the Draco, possibly.
And they're the ones kind of steering a lot of the stuff happening on the planet over the last 100
I'd
years.
say so.
Yeah.
Say so.
Do you know much about the Draco? Have you encountered them, the reptilians, and what they look like?
Yeah, I mean, they were at the crash retrieval in Goodwood. Yeah, they were like 8 feet tall there. You can see it on the video footage. But other people were there. But I told the other people, if they get too close to you, just huddle in a circle and don't look at them because you might have a heart attack. So when they walk past them on the film, if you look at it on a big screen TV and slow it down or stop it, you can see the guys standing next to the crashed Cessna. When the Draco walked past them, they all huddled together in a circle and put their heads down.
And were you part of that crash retrieval?
Yeah, I was there, but I told them just huddle in a circle and don't look at them if they get too close.
So how did you know that that would be an effective strategy against that?
Because I just know that you can, like, if most people put bush monster in a cell with you for a few months, you're going to go insane. But I can cope with being around them without dying or having a heart attack. But most people can't. So that's why I knew. That's why I said to them, don't even look at them if they get too close. Because if they're far away, you can say, oh, you can just invent whatever you want in your own head. You can say they're firemen, or whatever. But if they get too close, you can't stay in that denial forever.
So they could actually appear as something different, obviously?
No, probably you're so traumatized, you just invent what you want them to be.
Right. Okay.
Your brain just tries to
Yeah, just
protect
to
you.
protect you.
Yeah.
And that's easy to do when something's like 20 feet away or 30 feet away, but when it gets close, it's harder and harder to do.
Right.
Right. And where was that crash retrieval?
Goodwood.
Where's Goodwood?
Yeah, it's in Sussex, near Chichester. It's near Brighton.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, south. A lot of things happen in Brighton. That's the major location.
So why do you think that area seems to be a hub for all this stuff? And
I
why
think because the people there were connected to Brighton. It seems to be about people very much.
But I mean, like, in general, why was Aleister Crowley coming over there and doing the rituals there as opposed to
Oh,
anywhere else?
obviously because of the portals there and Zena, St. Ives.
Yeah, so I guess it's these areas that they do these rituals are portal sites.
Energetic
Yeah.
Yeah,
hotspots, portals. Yeah.
right.
Sumerian.
Sumerian.
Yeah.
So I know in the past you've claimed to remote view a lot of bases with incredible accuracy, actually. And do you remember doing any remote viewing and what you saw?
Yeah, it's not really something I do too much now because I don't really need to do it anymore.
Right.
The whole system's like in plan, ready to move. Well, it is moving forward. So many questions have been answered.
Right. But I just didn't know because it was something that you used to talk about, especially in your book. And I just, so you don't do that anymore then.
No, I think, yeah, things have moved on, definitely.
Right. But do you have memory of what you remote viewed?
I've done a lot of remote viewing over the years. Back when I used to go to the Probe International conference where much of this started, when I did my first interviews when I came out around 2006, I used to I had my own technique where I used to get relaxed and remote view every night, see where I wanted to go and who I wanted to look at or where I wanted to look at.
And you got pretty good at it then?
Well, I'd already done it. I'd been trained in it formally, but yeah, I mean, I used to do it every night in St. Ives. That was back when life was peaceful and simple,
Hmm.
back in 2006.
Yeah.
So you were actually trained as a child then to remote view? Is that part of the training?
Yeah, yeah. Probably lasted a year or two, and then training for other things as well. A lot of it was drug assisted and things like that. Trip seat assisted.
Trip seat, you said?
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I think it's some of the internal implants that we were discussing. It was what you were seeing would show on a screen in front of the seat.
Oh, so
They could
actually,
record it.
so what you remote viewed would show up on the screen and they can record it. That's what.
Yeah, so like you're
Wow.
almost like a probe.
That's really cool.
Yeah. But it's like you were part of a machine then, you know. But
No,
it's
yeah.
almost like you're sitting in the center of the machine now. You're almost like an arm of the machine years ago, but now it's almost like you're sitting in the center of the machine. It's all changed.
Yeah, I mean, that was, man, that had to have been when you were a child. So you can only imagine how that technology has
Now.
advanced or developed.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Like decades ago. So
Right. So, I mean, I would say, and we know this just from listening to other whistleblowers and stuff, they can effectively even record your dreams then too.
yeah, they probably can. There's probably internal implants that can do it as well.
Yeah, because I remember I actually had an experience one night where I saw this little tiny little being, and I don't know why I knew that he was there. Woke up, I knew he was recording my dream, like it was almost like a little entity or something. And so
Yeah.
I think it's like an entity assisted technology in a way too, maybe.
Yeah. I'd say because in the last few years all the dreams have become musical. There's like choir singing to me, and then I wake up and write the songs down. It's almost like AI. I don't know, AI is the right word, but it's very realistic. You're like
Right.
it's a submersive experience.
So you're
Yeah.
essentially downloading these songs while you're dreaming.
Yeah, yeah. But you got to write them down or sing them into a dictaphone within the first 10 minutes of waking, or you just forget them.
Right. So is there anything else as far as, that maybe you can tap into if you remember it or not?
It's still a hell of a lot I can't say, so I'm putting a lot of it out in music.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you can decode, so people can kind of decode it a little bit.
Right. Right.
I don't want to be treading on eggshells for the rest of my life. I'm super cautious for the rest of my life. I do want to come out and talk about this stuff.
Right.
Right.
I understand that. Yeah, absolutely. Um,
I have a question real quick.
yeah.
How many different like ET races would you say are on the planet right now that you know of, or which types would you say are on the planet?
Well, very much disclosure has taken an aquatic turn. So a lot of them are sea based. I don't know whether it's the Dogon coming back from Sirius,
Oh yeah,
but that's very much, there's about at least 4 or 5 for the sea ones. Very much land based is Anunnaki.
Right.
I mean we hear about
Talking about active, very active now in 2025.
yeah we hear about Pleiadians all the time, Arcturians, Andromedans, Centaurians,
Right.
Syrian. I mean we hear about all these things, but it's always interesting to hear more insiders' perspective of the ones they know about specifically. And that obviously varies so much. It's funny because you'll hear one insider say, "Oh, there's only 4," and like, or that's what they're told, and that's all they know, really. And then you have one that's like, "Oh no, there's like
Hundreds. Yeah.
37. Oh no, there's 100 and whatever. Oh no, there's hundreds, thousands." It's like, I mean, it because it gets complicated, right? Because it also depends on like, well, what dimension are you talking about? Because if you're just talking about in the third dimension, I think a lot of these exist in a higher frequency that they can like maybe come down in and out of, but like they don't naturally just stay in 3D. And then there's also, like you said, in the ocean, the water things that don't get talked about much, and there's probably lots more
Well,
there. Or Earth, and
there's there's a church in Zena with the mermaid chair, and it's the Mermaid of Zena legend. The blonde mermaid came onto land there. Um, she heard one of the choir boys singing. She liked his voice, came onto land and kidnapped him out to sea. So there's very much that mermaid
yeah,
narrative
focused around Zena.
So
these are real.
So I guess it
very-
seems to me you're tapping into more of like all the aquatic disclosure, what like under the sea and underground military bases are undersea military bases as well. I mean,
Yeah.
are you aware of that?
Well, I talked about the one that goes off the coast of Cornwall where it's shallow and then it drops into deep ocean. The base is in the little ledge where it changes between the two. But then there was a Rob Lowe program on TV a few years back. Not Tom Lowe, the surfer, Rob Lowe, the actor.
Yeah, actor.
Yeah, I remember that show. Him and his son or something.
I remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Aquatic bases off the coast of LA, I think it was. But I think it was some satellite imagery. They showed that's exactly where the base was on the shelf, where it goes from shallow to deep ocean. It's like a hole, like a big door, and it just goes into the shelf. So that's some confirmation of what I described in Basis 24 was confirmed on the Rob Lowe TV show.
Interesting.
Interesting it would show up on a TV show, yeah. But I think a lot of stuff it's like they're not worried that we know about certain things because they keep us focused on that and then they get to do something else, you know.
There's a recent show on Netflix. It's George Knapp, and it's like a docuseries. And at the very end of it, they seem to find evidence of like an under ocean base off the coast of Mexico, somewhere off that specific area of Mexico that has a ton of UFO activity. It's like off the charts, and people that live there all like have tons of experiences. And they went a little bit out in the ocean. And they found some very interesting evidence of what appears to be a base under the ocean there. So there's also
It's Leoness 1. That's the base in Cornwall, Leoness
yeah.
1. And then you have Leoness 2 and 3 as well.
And those are all underwater?
Yeah, off the coast of Cornwall, Leoness 1, that's the one on the north coast. Then you have Leoness 2 and 3 as well.
And
Interesting.
are those supposed to be classified? Or are they well known?
No, they're not well known. Nobody knows about them. They're really old. If you're talking about Leoness, you're talking about something that goes back to pre-flood, thousands of years ago.
Oh,
Like
that old.
Mhm.
8 to 12,000 years ago.
Really? So that would be an ancient ET base then.
Most likely.
Yeah.
To do with the Arthurian cycles. King Arthur, Geoffrey of Monmouth wrote about it. And 1/3 of his writings were dedicated to Tristan, or Tristram, with an M on the end. That's the French version of Tristan.
So
So
you go,
Leoness is connected to the Arthurian cycles, the King Arthur myths.
and do you think, in your opinion, the King Arthur myths are extraterrestrial based?
Something like that. It's definitely transhuman. I think they were supposed to have found one of the bodies connected to the Arthurian myths. I'd have to look up the exact details. It could even be Glastonbury way, but it was like a giant skeleton, maybe 7, 8 feet tall.
Right. Wow. So are you familiar with any of the narratives that a lot of these giant beings have been in stasis, even potentially even the Anunnaki for all this time, and they're going to be reawakened and come back online? Are you familiar with any of those narratives?
That's what I talk about in Escape from Tartarus, Agent Buried Alive too. Yeah, some of the super soldiers in Latin America operations got really big, physically too big and out of control, so they put them in stasis underground.
Interesting.
So
And then we woke them up years later.
they did wake them up.
Yeah, they went back online. It's like the one in Iraq, the body of the Sumerian king they found there, Gilgamesh. I mean, that was reported by the BBC a few years ago.
Right.
That was a giant body that was found. But that could have been a super soldier that was active on operations in Latin America and was just taken offline and put in Iraq for a couple of years. Doesn't necessarily mean he's been there for thousands of years.
Yeah, could
This is
be.
why this is a lot more real than things just happening thousands of years ago. It's a lot more current.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and that's a fascinating insight that it's potentially like the giants are actually super soldiers that got out of hand, right? Out of control, and they had to put them in stasis because they didn't know what else to do with them, and then
Rather
they're
than just kill them,
right,
they wanted to preserve it. Yeah, put it in stasis.
This is what I say it's more current.
right,
Mhm.
right. So, and I guess you think giants are going to play a bigger role in coming back into the awareness then as we move forward?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's huge giant mythology to do with Cornwall. You've got the giant of St. Michael's Mount, which was supposed to be a giant there, and his wife lived on St. Michael's Mount just down the road in Penzance.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think those myths are, obviously they try to tell us that they're just a myth, but there's truth based in all of it, I think.
I think all myths have truth,
Right.
are based on truth.
I think they might have even found a giant skeleton there on St. Michael's Mount at one point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised at
I
all.
I would not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not sure where else we can go with this right now. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on before we start wrapping this up?
I think it's been a good chat. I think we covered a lot
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
we did.
I think so.
for the first podcast in
Right.
years. Anyway,
Right.
Right.
Well, yeah, thank you so much. I guess, is there anywhere people can find Agent Buried Alive? Because that book is not available anywhere online anymore.
do you know what? I didn't even release it myself. It was just like other people released it, and then it was translated into German, translated into Latin American.
Yeah,
So
because
it kind of just took on a life of its own, really.
so yeah, I that makes sense because you can't find it anywhere. Bibliotheca Pleiades, and we'll put that link below if anybody wants to read it.
Yeah.
Somebody put your book there, and you can read it there.
But just like on the website, right?
Yeah, just on
like text on the
Yeah,
site.
I would just say if people want to get updates, just to go to Bob Osborne's YouTube channel and just look for updates there. That's probably the best place.
Okay.
Okay.
But I just meant for your book in general where people could find it. So we'll put that link below, and then we'll put a link to an audio version. Somebody ran your book through like this robot AI voice, and
It's hard to
it's kind of an annoying voice, but it is the whole book in audio. We'll put that below as well. Some fascinating stuff in those books
Yeah.
are in that book. I mean,
Can't wait for the
part
new
two.
one coming out this
Yeah.
summer. It's exciting.
Yeah, you have to keep us
Escape
in
from Tartarus.
Escape from Tartarus.
Yeah, like the giant myth again.
So that's going to be the name of the book?
Yeah,
The subtitle?
yeah, that's it. Yeah, Agent Buried Alive 2, Escape from Tartarus.
Awesome.
Very nice.
We'll definitely be looking forward to that one, keeping our eyes out for that. So thanks for joining us today. This has been absolutely fascinating and insightful, and we appreciate you coming and doing this and bringing your bright light with you today so we can see real clearly. No, but seriously, thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. We hope you enjoyed this. And if you want to check out James's book, you can do so below in the description. We'll put those links there, and go check out Bob Osborne's YouTube channel. And it's Commander James Casbolt is your new channel, right?
Commander Komander.
Okay. And we'll put that also, we'll link that below as well. So we'll have everything below where you guys can find him and follow him. And we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much, James. And until next time, have a great evening. Good night. And it's just literally the way of the heart, and that's the way of the future. So
they are the ones that guard this planet. They open portals, they close portals, and they kind of protect us as a whole.
We wake up and we're like, holy shit. I've been lied to.
And I'm going to explain how this works and why they want our souls so badly.
When I'm talking about what is possible, I mean as far as the secret space program.
It's like this is the future, and it is a part of this golden age we're moving into. There's no hiding. You can't hide this, So
your quantum body, bringing more back online, like as in reloading past lives, soul fragments coming back, dismantling implants.
It might be different star languages that might come through. And we're talking a lot about dimensional beings, and they're very highly telepathic. So
it's like looking around. It doesn't see us. It can't see us. I can see it, but it can't see us. It can hear us, and it knows something's going around.
But humanity does have a bright future, and I'm going to prove it to you beyond a shadow of a doubt.
The minute I came into their energy, I was like, this isn't a real human. Their eyes were different color. And so I do believe it was a clone.
This thing's going for sometimes years at a time on these missions. Is this thing going to other planets? And I knew that they wouldn't be able to respond, but I wanted to see their reaction because that was going to tell me. And it was good because she froze up and she looked at the back of the room to her superior military guy. And then she looked back at me and she's like, we can't talk about that.
And I can hear my higher self come in, and it's definitely my higher self. Go, don't say a word, do not let them know who you are. And I began to leave my body at that point.
And it is biblical. I'm not a biblical person. I've never read the Bible. My family wasn't really religious, so it's just really interesting as I've been starting to get these updates, even through the Alliance, I'm discovering it is very much biblical.
When I got over there, a blue light come down right over me, and boom, I was on a ship. And I was looking at 6 people, 3 men, 3 women, and every one of them I looked at didn't seem very interested at all that I was there.